So in an attempt to create transparency around how the New York Times chooses who they're endorsing for the presidential primaries, they did a series of a lot of long, drawn-out interviews with the Democratic primary candidates. And in their interview with Joe Biden, despite the New York Times' best efforts to give Joe Biden room to wiggle out of his double down, he does in fact double down on blaming black parents for the racial achievement gap in America in an interview with the New York Times published on Friday. Womp womp.
Yeah.
So just a little background. In the third 2020 Democratic presidential debate held in September, I'm sure many of you remember when Biden said that the one way America could address the legacy of slavery and segregation was by bridging the word gap. Do you guys remember exactly how he recommended black families bridge the word gap in their family, in their household?
Record players.
Yeah, record players.
That was it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how you do. I mean, that's how I do it in my family.
Which I think most early childhood developmental scientists would say, yes, reading to your family and reading with your children is a thing that can improve their vocabulary.
No.
But none of them said get them around the phonograph.
Well.
No, that's the way to do it. If you don't have a phonograph in it, you're not a real parent, guys. Let's be real.
So the editorial, board pressed Biden on these claims and asked him to elaborate on how solving the word gap would address the legacy of slavery. And he began his answer by noting that the former president, Barack Obama, had also been criticized for advising black parents to take more responsibility for raising their children.
I love Obama. That Joe Biden's like, oh, by the way, I worked with Obama. Just wanna, if there's not a record for that,
remember Obama said that's the same thing that I'm saying right now, so it makes it totally okay that I'm saying it right now. And then he cited his wife's experience as a teacher also as a reason for suggesting that black parents don't participate as much with their children's schooling due to embarrassment around their own level of education. So just like large blanket statement, a lot of speculation there. And just to be clear, Biden's suggestion that black parents are reluctant to participate in their children's education is not based in any fact, has no basis in any proof at all.
No basis in reality.
In reality, yes, that's right. It's not grounded in reality. So, and the word gap research, right, was actually carried out in the 1980s. So there was actually a thing that Joe Biden is referring to, and it was research done in the 1980s with just 42 families. The researchers, both of whom were white, recorded interactions of white and black families and concluded that black children heard 30 million fewer words by the time they were 3 years old than white children, a deficit that significantly impeded their linguistic and cognitive abilities. Later research actually found that this study was really, at best, simplistic in its findings.
Well, as you guys know, when we cover polls, the fewer people that respond to the poll, the more accurate the poll is.
Right. And as we know, segregation and mass incarceration and poorly funded schools are among many, 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 many reasons for this achievement gap. So inside of just those three things that I listed, I pulled some numbers for everybody just for a little bit of context, right? So, slavery started in America in 1619 and went to 1865. Then in 1896 to 1964, we basically had Jim Crow segregation laws, and Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964. Between 1882 and 1968, mobs lynched 4,743 people in the United States, and 70% of them were black. African Americans are incarcerated at more than 5 times the rate of whites. Imprisonment rate for black women is twice that of white women. Nationwide, black children represent 32% of children who are arrested, 42% of children who are detained, and 52% of children whose cases are judicially waived to criminal court. What happens when you go to jail? You lose your job, you lose your family, you lose any opportunity to actually make money when you get out, you lose a lot of your social circles and communities. So that like literally wrecking people's lives. And this wasn't something that Joe Biden could clearly point to as a reason for the achievement gap, or maybe a reason why parents aren't involved in their children's lives. Maybe it's because their parents are in prison, right?
And
so
I want to mention that we got to thank Joe Biden for helping send them there with the bills that he has championed, pushed, and continues to support.
Yeah, it's so a study like this is pretty biased in the narrow scope of it, and to cite it is equally sort of dog whistly in that you're denying all other socioeconomic factors that contribute to this type of outcome, and you're pinning it on ethnicity. When it's like, well, hang on, time out, just a second. There's a lot of context we're omitting here. So,
yeah, I want to also add that let's just not forget that the main point of this, and that Biden has said, again, these are his own words. The reason that black kids aren't doing well is because their parents are stupid and don't want to admit it because they're self-conscious, because they're not educated enough. That's about as reasonable as a study of 46 or whatever people saying it's. This is the guy that has the black vote locked down, surely locked down. Remember, like 6 months ago, oh, Biden completely controls the African-American vote. No one can possibly take it from him. 3 months ago, it's really rock solid. No one can take it from him. A month ago, oh, it's kind of slipping. And now, like, how many times does Joe Biden have to let people know what he's thinking before they take him seriously?
but people still
That's a
make that
great
argument to
question.
me that, oh, well, we don't know. So South Carolina, we'll see when we get there. Let's assume that Joe Biden is going to win South Carolina. And I'm like, but there are all these reasons why, the firewall, right? The African-American vote, we always point to South Carolina as this firewall state. So many reasons why that firewall is crumbling.
Yeah.
Like there are chinks in that armor. I'm mixing metaphors here.
Yeah, and here's another one. You know what you say to someone like that? Ooh, sounds like your parents didn't speak to you for 3 million words. Then I butchered
30
that as well.
30 million.
30 million words. Yeah, someone make that a reasonable diss for me, please.
Make it concise and really smooth so we can use it anytime we want to pass somebody off as not doing enough, right? And then also some other numbers that I found really alarming that I wanted to share with our audience and you too also is that there are, school districts or high poverty school districts serving mostly students of color that receive about $1,600 less per student than the national average. And then, and while white poor school districts that are predominantly white, receive only $130 less. So even if you take poor and poor, black students receive far less than poor white students. And one of the biggest disparities I found was in Arizona. Poor, primarily white school districts get about $19,000 per student, while high poverty non-white districts get about $8,000. So that means that there is a $11,000 discrepancy between how much a black student will, or a non-white student rather, will receive for their education in a year versus a white poor student. So I think that Joe Biden should probably do some reading. Maybe just a little Googling. I don't know.
Maybe he should be, his parents should have spoken 30 million more words to him when he was a kid.
I think maybe so. So guys, Joe Biden he's real trouble. And I think of anything, he's the thing I'm most scared of when it comes to this primary and this conversation about electability that's truly not honestly based in anything. I think that Joe Biden will be big trouble for actual electability against Trump. Personally,
I'm worried about Joe Biden only in that he seems to have so much built-in institutional support. Like at every turn, mainstream press is singing his praises and making excuses for him and trying to shame Bernie and trying to make a spat between Warren and Bernie, and Biden is so great, at least he's above this fray and all this nonsense. And it's like any honest effort to look at Joe Biden's political history, his voting record, his public statements, what he campaigns on, what he stands for, should lead anyone to the conclusion that this is not the type of politician that we want. This is this sort of centrist, mealy-mouthed, let me tell you why we can't have the things that you want. Let me tell you why we need to roll back Social Security, but let me not say that too loud and deny the fact that I'm saying that all the time. It's super problematic. And the fact that it almost seems like he has more support, like from our perspective, because we just keep hearing it all the time in mainstream press. And I'm not convinced that he has as much support.
Well, and we keep seeing these polls that
it's self-fulfilling,
say
right?
this.
Perception is reality, as Daniel says.
Yeah.
So on this note, I'm actually, as we get closer and closer to Iowa, I'm less and less worried. I'm actually getting to the point where I'm actually encouraging the media to keep spinning these lies or these perceptions that they're trying to make into reality. Because one thing that we did see in 2016 with Hillary supporters is that a lot of them didn't come out to vote. And that's something that literally everyone forgets is also a thing. Like there's obviously the people they lost, the people they ignored, the people that went to Trump. But I think the biggest group is also Hillary people that were like, I don't have to go out to vote. She has this thing in the bag. I'm good. And I think that's also going to be a thing.
Your impressions of people, I'm always trying to place them. It's really good, though.
Thank you.
That Hillary supporter impression was good.
Yeah, I try. It's like a Midwest. It's like the 5 Midwestern people she got to vote for her. So I feel like that's another thing that's going to not help Biden because, again, like how many people actually know a Biden supporter? Like basically no one. His support is basically soft. Like again, like I'll just reiterate Iowa. A year ago, Biden's going to win Iowa. No question. It's wonderful. He's the best candidate. He's a solid candidate. He's going to win Iowa. 6 months ago, oh, he's going to do good in Iowa. It's going to be very competitive. He has South Carolina. Firewall. We're good. It's 3 months ago. And anonymous sources are like, Biden might not, win Iowa, but he has that firewall. A month ago, he's kind of lost Iowa. He's also lost, or is losing this firewall. So they have the same tone every time they say it. It's don't worry about it. What I would actually be more worried about is if the news was like, hey, Joe Biden, we got to be worried. But at the same time, that's kind of his entire thing is that people think he's going to win and is a shoo-in, which is why he has the chance of winning. So actually, if they change that up, then that entire facade goes away either way. So again, he's perched on this. We talk about paper tigers a lot. We talk about the falseness of them. Biden is in this very special state of precariousness where just a little bit of here, a little bit of there, just going to crumble him. And what happens to his support? Again, what happens to this firewall that continues to break down when he loses the first 3 states and is in 3rd place in each? That doesn't look like a winner to me. Then everyone starts worrying about Biden. Oh, is Biden the person we want? Is just and again, they will try and move. And you can mark my words on this. Call me if I'm wrong on this. They're going to shift Biden support, and they're going to try and make Pete Buttigieg the guy that replaces him. And then I think at some point Warren will endorse Sanders. And if that happens,
whoa, that's a huge prediction.
Yeah, but
I don't know if I agree with that.
It seems the most logical thing to me because I don't think Warren would endorse either Biden or Buttigieg over Sanders. I think she's still, even with everything that's happened, I think that she would still go with Bernie. That's the one that I'm like maybe 65%. It's the weakest of my predictions. But Biden.
At what point do you think Warren's no longer going to be a candidate?
After the first few states, because she's all in Iowa, she's all in New Hampshire, then she really has nothing afterwards. Whereas Bernie has stuff all the way planned out. Biden and Buttigieg have the money for it. Warren doesn't. She especially doesn't have the money after probably $1 million got taken out of her and her reputation got shot after it already got shot. So if we're in a spot where Biden drops out, his second choice for most of his supporters are Bernie people. That helps Bernie a huge amount. I'm still surprised that Kamala Harris supporters went to Bernie Sanders. Everything seems to show that that's where they went. Warren supporters are still second choice Bernie. So she's going to really want to take advantage, like be in finance, she's going to want to do something. And I don't think she's going to get that same deal or want to do that same thing with either Pete or Biden. So again, that's what I've been saying since the beginning of the race. The second that Biden drops out, it cascades to Sanders winning.
Well,
I think there's, sorry to cut you off. I think there's an option you haven't considered that I think is probably more likely, and that she just withholds endorsement altogether.
That doesn't sound like Warren, though.
But that isn't that
She
kind
didn't
of
endorse
what
anybody
she
in
did in the
2016?
primaries? I remember being so upset
But
with her that she didn't do
her
that.
non-endorsement was in fact an endorsement.
An endorsement for Bernie.
No, for Hillary.
Well, in the primaries,
Yeah, because-
I feel like she was getting so much pressure to endorse Hillary,
she was
and
also
she didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Which to me said that she wanted to endorse Bernie.
Yeah, but she ended up with Hillary because she
didn't endorse anybody in the
I
primaries.
know, but withholding from that point of view, withholding benefits Hillary.
Yes, it did benefit Hillary, only because it didn't do
And
anything for
if
Bernie.
I'm Warren and I don't have a spine and I don't want to piss people off and I kind of go, I'm not gonna vote. I'm just not gonna endorse anyone because I know that I've already made a deal with Hillary. Thank you, WikiLeaks, for pointing that out a few months ago.
Well, which was I had an assumption that basically the reason that Warren didn't run in 2016 was because oh no, it's Hillary's turn,
That's what I'm
right?
saying.
That's what the case was.
But we
which
knew
is-
from WikiLeaks that she had been angling to be VP. She was already making deals and discussions with Hillary way before it even got to Massachusetts primary. She was already for Hillary. She just didn't want to piss off Bernie people. That's really what it came down to. She wanted to have her cake and eat it too. And I expect that Warren is going to use that same sort of consistent pragmatism. And she's going to go up to Bernie and say, look, I would like to be your finance secretary or your finance cabinet or something. As long as she doesn't ask for VP or something like that, she'll probably get it. Bernie will probably give it to her because they're still, from Bernie's point of view, good friends. They probably have this spat. But that's how I think it's going to work out.